Pyra and Mythra are in Smash, and I couldn't be happier. Actually, yes I could. I'd be much happier if people would stop trying to shame me for being excited. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun! Today I bring you another Die Time, a video dedicated to covering recent discussion topics in the anime fandom, as well as a chance for me to share with you all the anime things I experience, but can't dedicate to their own video. This time we've got incidents of censorship, modesty, plagiarism, and crappy translations. I hope you enjoy! To start off, I want to talk about Pyra and Mythra. These two badass ladies from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 have finally made it into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. After trolling us with that stupid Rex Mii fighter, I was quite surprised to see Nintendo give me a fighter I actually wanted. Sephiroth? Meh. Minecraft? Blah. So the chance for me to play as a total babe with a giant flaming sword is truly a dream come true. Y'all should know me by now. Someone like Cloud is cool and all. He was the epitome of badass for me as a young teenager. But now I see characters like Pyra, and I'm elated to a whole new level. The combination of beauty and ferocity is absolutely divine, but of course, not everyone is happy about their inclusion. I think it's safe to say we should expect some backlash anytime a Smash character gets announced. Now that the game has opened the floodgates to practically anyone, we all have our own dream characters, and if we don't get them, we're gonna be salty. That's why people are upset that there are so many Fire Emblem Sword characters, and while I understand that plea, I can't personally complain since I really enjoy Fire Emblem. People who are upset by Pyra and Mythra because they had someone else they wanted more is totally understandable. My real issue is that people are using this announcement as another chance to bash the characters as misogynist, sexist, and objectifying. I hate seeing such amazing characters trashed in this way, and there are some things I want to add to the conversation. In essence, we've got people saying their designs are bad because they're sexual. Just looking at them, I don't think they're that exposed, to be honest. They're basically wearing bodysuits with some occasional cutouts. That's considering their original outfits, too. In Smash Ultimate, they've been censored to wear stockings, and Mythra in particular is missing her cleavage cutout, which means that these girls are covered up quite a bit. The only basis for criticism now is their figures, which are both busty. Let's not lie here. This discussion is all about their fine butts and busts. People on Twitter are criticizing the characters as misogynist and objectifying primarily because they have nice bodies, and that their form-fitting outfits show it. What I want to say is that these Twitter Puritan critics are, ironically, the ones doing most of the objectifying. After all, objectification is a process of stripping a person of their identity, their will, and other important qualities, and seeing them only in terms of their appearance. The accusation is that Pyra and Mythra only exist to please men as part of a boys' club mentality. As an aside, let me say that alone is sexist. We're in a world of gender diversity, and various identities and sexualities would imply that men aren't the only ones who like this stuff. Either way, let's not kid ourselves. There's nothing wrong with wanting characters in our fictional fantasies to be attractive. If you claim that's not a priority, or a boon, you're probably lying. The vast majority of beloved characters across media are a feast for the eyes, or at least someone's eyes. That's not the issue. It's a matter of whether those attractive characters are well written and emotionally compelling. In other words, do they have merits beyond simply their appearance? Even suggesting that Pyra and Mythra lack qualities beyond their bosoms is enough to piss me off. Yes, they're pretty, but that alone doesn't explain why Xenoblade fans pour easily over 100 hours into their games. Critics point to a couple moments in the game where there's fan service, but completely ignore the context that Xenoblade's story is about a boy and a girl falling in love over the course of a sprawling adventure. A little mischievous tension goes hand in hand with that. There are moments when Rex saves Pyra, and when she in turn saves him. There are moments where they struggle to understand each other, but work through their problems together. It's beautiful, and Xenoblade fans know that. They know that Mythra is a powerful weapon who means well, but after losing control of her power, she runs away from it all, hiding away in her subconscious while creating Pyra as her stand-in. Pyra is sweet, kind, and caring, while Mythra, harboring those same emotions, has more attitude and is more confrontational. I know that even though I haven't played the game in years, so it's actually really insulting when people who've barely played the game dismiss it outright as pandering weeb fuel. That's right, I'm talking about you, donkey. So Xenoblade fans, the people Nintendo put Pyra and Mythra in Smash exclusively to please, aren't the ones doing the objectifying. They, likely more than anyone else, love the characters for both their looks and personhood. Instead, it's the critics who take one look at Pyra and Mythra and call them misogynistic that can't seem to look beyond their tits and see them as fully developed people. Just let that sink in. To make things worse, that attitude the critics have, more often than not, perpetuates body shaming. It shames women for their beauty, or simply for having large chests. For many of these Puritans, that's not intentional, as what they really want to state is that it's wrong for fictional women to be designed as attractive for the sake of horny consumers. As I've said in other videos, the issue isn't the existence of the chest, but the fact that people apparently like it. Calling for such characters to have their busts reduced, be censored, or otherwise covered up is equally problematic. Why? Because outrage perpetuates obsession. In other words, the more you shame something, the more significant it becomes. Modesty is its own worst enemy. As a nod to a later topic in this video, I'll use hijab as an example. A hijab is a religious veil worn by Muslim women in the presence of men who aren't family. It covers their hair and ears as a symbol of modesty. On one end, it's the epitome of misogyny, a means of a husband or father owning his wife or daughter by preventing other men from looking upon them with lust. On the other end, it can be a way for Muslim women to preciously share themselves only with the man she loves. Regardless of how you interpret this, it's a standard of modesty that makes a woman's hair sacred or special, while shaming women who share their hair out of what is considered proper circumstance. Modesty is always accompanied by a twisted blend of idolizing and shaming parts of our bodies, in turn making them significant. This phenomena creates a forbidden fruit sort of appeal for fashion and sexuality. Not sure if people will remember this reference, but when I was growing up there was this video series called Girls Gone Wild that was advertised on television. It was pretty softcore, featuring a lot of college girls flashing the camera, and yet it got attention and sales because of our obsession with breasts. Showing them off is deemed immodest, and so when someone gets to see them, it's considered special and exciting. Obviously, we should condemn criminal behaviors, but in this case, the outrage is merely a superfluous cultural stigma. In other parts of the world, women go topless and it's considered normal. Our standards of modesty throughout culture and history are completely illogical. A woman showing her underwear, for instance, is considered shameful or indecent, yet that stigma relaxes if it's a swimsuit, but only at the beach or by the water. I've been playing Rhythm Boxing 2 on Switch, and when I unlocked a bikini for my personal trainer, the game told me I could only use the outfit with the beach background stage. How is that really any different than a sports bra and short shorts? It's basically the same amount of coverage I already got in that game. Then there's the fear of skirts. People lose their shit over short skirts, and yet even a one-piece swimsuit is more revealing. How does wrapping a piece of cloth around the waist suddenly make what's under the cloth more indecent? We've already seen what's under that skirt before the skirt was added, so does it really matter how well that skirt covers? My main point is that modesty is a double-edged sword. If people find something sexy, it gets labeled as shameful, and the more it gets shamed, the more sexy it becomes. This is precisely why people brought up Shulk and Sephiroth being shirtless in the game without censorship. We're able to look at a guy's shirtless body and get over it. Anyone who's turned on by it gets their fix and moves on, yet a woman can't go topless without it being indecent. We've accepted this logic in society, but whose fault is that? My point is that people who try to force modesty onto women in order to combat objectification are contributing to that objectification. I'm not saying we should all go streaking, but I am saying we need to stop being so uptight about what a woman can show off if she wants to. It's just skin. Or in some cases, a couple of C-shaped lines someone drew. That's why it's so horrible that people are getting upset over a new character design revealed for the second season of Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. They thought that Lukua was the most endowed dragon, but she's been one-upped. At this point, the design is practically a parody. I can't say I care for it, but for someone to be legitimately offended is silly. Though, as I said, outrage perpetuates obsession. I really wouldn't have known or cared about this girl without people throwing a fit online. What would have just passed by as another of thousands of anime characters out there will now be elevated to a status of relevance, which I don't think the critics really intended. And no, the people claiming this is harmful to children, or are triggered by it, aren't actually concerned about other people at all. That is, if I'm to believe the people joking about the Kyoani arson are in any way sincere. Essentially, there were people in the comments section of a certain TikTok more or less deriving enjoyment from the fact that the creators involved with Dragon Maid were killed in the fire. In other words, they'll celebrate the death of someone because they don't like the cartoons they drew. One degenerate even going so far as to imply they deserved it for being pedos. I'm not religious, but let's just say there's a special hell reserved for people this heartless. Going back to the whole hijab thing, apparently, Iran's supreme leader stated that while fictional women are too hypothetical to require a hijab, artists shouldn't be showing their characters' hair to others. Basically, make whatever animated women you want, but don't show them to anybody. Kinda defeats the point, right? I haven't heard of any anime getting banned necessarily over this decree, but it does suggest some people's desire to see all of our anime characters cover up to that extent. This parallels what we're seeing from some discourse around Huniepop too, with a character named Abia. She's a sexually repressed Middle Eastern woman who, due to her family's strict rules, has taken to stealthy self-pleasure and experimenting with other women. She wears her hijab at times, but there are also plenty of occasions where she doesn't, and since you can select her outfits in the game, you can technically make it so she never wears it again. This pisses a lot of people off. All I can say is that if her family, or the internet at large, have an issue with her, she's welcome in my fandom. Next up, we have localization drama. Recently, the company 7 Seas Entertainment has been rightfully called out for their drastic changes to their localization of the light novels Classroom of the Elite and Mushoku Tensei, to the point where they're reissuing entire volumes. These changes are pretty huge, from omitting entire paragraphs to changing what actually happens in the story. There's a scene with the protag trying to remove the panties from a sleeping woman, but in 7 Seas' version, it was changed to him pulling her shirt over her so she wouldn't catch a cold. Anime fans do not want this. If the author wrote a perverted character, then it's a localizer's job to provide us with that characterization, not change him. When confronted by this, 7 Seas gave a half-assed public statement explaining that the localization process involves multiple stages of editing so that their English versions are commercially viable and enjoying to read. Duh! One-to-one translations aren't always the prettiest, so a bit of rewording here and there is acceptable. Nobody's complaining about that. Nobody worth listening to, anyway. The things we've been complaining about have always been much more severe. It's not a matter of, "How are you doing today?" being translated as, "How's it going?" and more about something like, "I cross-dress because it's more convenient for me," being translated to, "Some binaries work for me and others don't." One is changing a line to sound more natural, and the other is actually changing what a character says or means. Apparently the translators, specifically at 7 Seas, have come out to say that they did in fact translate things accurately, and it was the editorial staff later down the pipeline that made the changes. Regardless, companies need to make sure that they're doing the original work justice at all stages of production. After all, your translation could be coming from someone like Sarah K. Translate. She's an exceptionally arrogant, unapologetic freelance translator who unironically supports the whole patriarchy line in Dragon Maid. Just to taunt people online, she tweeted, "Just translated Yatsura as incels, and I couldn't be prouder." Now, Yatsura is a term that's literally translated as they, but more conversationally comes off as those guys. It's a term often used with a bit of an attitude, kinda like, "Oh, those guys." She doesn't give us any context, but we can infer that this is about one character, referring to a group of boys, whom she claims are incels. It could be something hypothetical like, "Well, those guys over there call women sluts for not sleeping with them," and she's changing it to, "Well, those incels over there call women sluts for not sleeping with them." Sarah feels it's okay to add that word because the boys in question fit her definition of an incel, and so she injects an exclusively Western term where it doesn't belong, no matter how much the characters actually do fit the definition of an incel. That's not okay. Later, she claims she changed her translation, not because she was wrong about the boys being incels, but because the character in question wouldn't have used the term. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The fact that she's all giddy over a translation she knows upsets people just demonstrates she's succumbing to the power lust that comes from being entrusted with an official translation. Her desire to make the localization her creation is too strong, and along with that comes the arrogance that she could perhaps do better than the original creator. Seriously, these translators all say, "Well, this fits the flavor or personality of the conversation better than a direct translation," even though it's just their interpretation. That's the point. We are disagreeing with your subjective interpretation, especially when there are more humble or unassuming choices to go with. The people who defend choices like this don't actually care about the translation at all, and that's proven by how Twitter Puritans reacted when Crunchyroll accurately translated Kuro Gyaru as dark-skinned gal. For the manga, I became a dark-skinned gal, so I tried to bang my best friend. To be literal, Kuro means black, but in the context of a gyaru, a Japanese girl following a particular fashion trend, it refers to someone who is dark-skinned. Why? Because usually when we're referring to a black person, we're implying someone originating from Africa, or a person whose skin is dark enough to match. Clearly by this picture, however, you can tell that the girl's clearly not that dark. Yet social media seems to despise the term dark-skinned, like it's an attempt at erasing someone's race. Twitterians bullied Crunchyroll until they apologized for their translation. It's just fucked up. If you don't like it, don't read it. But that translation is pretty damn accurate. Meanwhile, we've got other translators who feel that Japanese words shouldn't be left in translations. This is in defense of how Higurashi Go's official subs translate how Satoko says Nini as Big Brother. Yes, it's a cutesy way of saying Big Brother, but Big Brother makes Satoko sound like she's 5 years old. I'm not bothered too much by this translation, but I would also have no problem if they just put in Nini in the subtitles. If you're an anime fan and don't know what the hell senpai or ni-chan are, you're extremely ignorant. The idea that you can't learn a bit of Japanese while trying to understand a Japanese anime is silly. We're not, nor should we be, that sheltered. Seriously, imagine Karate Kid without the iconic Daniel-san. This next topic isn't so serious to me, but nevertheless grinds my gears. Butch Hartman, the artist behind shows like Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom, has been outed for plagiarizing artwork he charged commission for. Despite him specializing in goofy American cartoons, someone requested that he draw Mikasa from Attack on Titan. And not only is the result pretty pathetic, but it also turns out that he copied the pose and composition straight from a much better artist. For shame! Don't charge money for that shit, dude, and give credit. Fan art is a serious thing these days, and the artists are easier to find than ever. Either way, I blame this catastrophe on the fact that Western cartoons have devolved into a generic splurge of basic shapes, while anime remains incredibly detailed and thorough. Now, I've got some bits of anime gaming to talk about. Let's start with something optimistic for a change. Ys 9 Monstrum Nox recently released in English, and it's a fantastic game. Honestly, all the Ys games are, but this one steps it up a notch with its various fun ways of exploring a city. You can run up walls, glide, sneak below the ground, and grapple to various ledges as you wander about a giant prison city. In general, the Ys games are a series of action titles that star the red-haired adventurer Adol as he visits new lands and humbly fights off evil in each one. Its badass soundtrack and adrenaline-fueled gameplay make it an exciting journey for any JRPG fan. Sadly, the two sexiest costumes in the game were locked behind a digital exclusive pre-order, which deterred me from buying the more expensive physical collector's edition. I think they shot themselves in the foot there. Bad NIS America, bad! I have no idea if buying the digital version now will still land you those exclusive costumes, but I know I just had to have my sexy cowgirl. Another game I'm really enjoying is Persona 5 Strikers. While it took Atlus way too long to release an English version, I'm thankful to say that the game is well worth the wait. Obviously, this game is for Persona 5 fans, but unlike a lot of the other Persona spin-off games, this one is actually a fully fleshed-out sequel. While it features mechanics from the Musou or Dynasty Warriors games, it's executed so well that it's basically just a new Persona title with an action-based battle system. I had no idea just how good this game would be, so I also recommend it to you all with much praise. Perhaps the only thing I found abrasive is how it handles boss battles. The bosses have a crap ton of health, and can usually kill one of your party members in a single moment of lapsed judgment. It's an exciting challenge, but it helps to know about it going in. My last topic for this week is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. They really should have called it something else, because at this point hardly anything added to the game will be authentic to the original. It's a reboot, or a sequel, an alternate timeline where the bonkers writers at Square Enix can play fanfic with the title we wanted to see adapted accurately. Nonetheless, their latest announcement for a Yuffie DLC chapter has me excited. Contrary to people's fears, Yuffie isn't at all censored, and playing as her looks like a blast. It's obvious the company is trying to squeeze as much content as they can out of those Midgar assets, and are even tossing in stuff from Dirge of Cerberus because people really liked that game. I'm pissed they're taking the effort to make DLC when the full game isn't even out. I was expecting to see Yuffie in their next chapter anyway. At least when Square makes a mess, it's a pretty one, and I'll stick around for the sheer spectacle. What I won't endorse, however, is that they actually are planning to give us an authentic remake, just not the pretty one we wanted. And it's a friggin' mobile game! The whole point of the remake was to show off iconic scenes from the game in brilliant HD with cinematic graphics, because the original was made with little chibi characters with barbell arms. Missing the point, Square thought it'd be charming to give us higher-res versions of these chibi designs, and use those to retell the classic game. Its only saving grace is that the battles appear to be using the remake's nice models. That said, there's no way a mobile game could hope to bring forth the same immersive combat and mechanics of the original. Something tells me it'll be simplified so that it's more tappable, and likely squeezed thin of content to charge players. They're getting greedy, especially with how they've made the remake's DLC exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I can't say I'm surprised though. As soon as I heard they were making a PS5, I knew this series would have to shift platforms at some point. You can't really take advantage of the latest hardware if you're limiting it to be compatible with last gen. Square's at least doing the right thing by letting PS4 customers upgrade to the PS5 version, along with their save data. I just wasn't expecting to buy a PS5 so soon, especially considering you can't actually buy one yet. Hopefully by June, all the scalpers will get struck by lightning or something. So yeah, it's been a bit of a depressing die time. With every bit of good news, we get stuck with something bad to balance it out. Thankfully, the part we care about, the actual anime, is as great as ever, so I'm nonetheless optimistic about future releases. How about you guys? Are you excited for anything coming up? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and, most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of my anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content. If you want to support me directly, there are now 3 ways that all provide the same benefits. You can click Join here on YouTube, or join Patreon or Subscribestar for access to exclusive vids and early access. As always, celebrate your fandom.